Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to Empire Builders. Today I thought we'd have a look at China. There's so many businesses and people interested in the Chinese community, and so I thought it'd be great to get an understanding of what the ultra-rich Chinese person looks like and how their mindset thinks for no matter what kind of business you're doing with them. Now today I'm joined by David Thomas from Think Global. Good to see you, David.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Now you've certainly got an interesting business. You're travelling around the world, seeing all the sites. Do you want to explain to the viewers a bit about what you do?
Well, I facilitate business and investment between Asia and other more developed regions. I spend a lot of my time in China dealing with rich entrepreneurs, high net worth individuals, migrants looking to do things around the world. So I'm in and out of China a lot.
Because you've been doing that for a while in lots of different Asian countries, because obviously if I suddenly want to build a business in China or vice versa, it's the other side of the world, you've got no idea. You need really an intermediary to probably just not only give you the connections but tell you how business is done.
Yeah, and you definitely need people on the ground. It's a very relationship driven culture. They do business with people they know and trust, often within their own families and own networks. So you have to spend a lot of time penetrating that, becoming someone they know well, turning up regularly and building those relationships. If you do that, and I've been doing it for nearly 30 years, you start to get somewhere. And I'm getting there now.
Now, obviously you don't look Chinese, but is that probably a good thing that they actually want to deal with a local person, because their own local Chinese people, they think, well, they're not really kind of set in that country?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, to do business with Chinese, you need locals dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. And I do have a Chinese business partner who helps me on the ground. But if they're doing business in a foreign environment, they understand that foreigners need to help them on the ground there. So it always helps to have me in the room, because they feel safe and comfortable knowing they've got somebody there that understands other environments.
Now, a lot of people know about Japan, that there's a whole hierarchy to their society. Is that the same thing in China?
Very much so, yeah. So they respect their elders. The decisions get made by the rich guys at the top and filtered down through organizations. And in families, the father tends to hold the decision making, and the juniors, the children and even grandchildren then get asked to go out and implement it. So yeah, it's very hierarchical, and it all starts at the top. And that's one of the challenges, is to figure out where the decisions are being made.
So in order for you to bring Chinese people to Australia or to any other country around the world, obviously you've got to be able to deal with them. So how do you start off doing it for yourself? How do you get to the top when you're technically a foreigner?
Well, I've been doing it a long time, so I turn up regularly. They've seen me a lot in China, promoting other countries, promoting foreign opportunities, and it's taken a long time. There are very few shortcuts around this. But the good news there is that it's changing very fast. I've seen more change in the last 5 years than in the last 30 years, and almost more change in the last year or two than in the previous 5. So it is actually changing. They are becoming more open to dealing with foreigners. They're certainly getting more interested in moving their money out of China, and they're now starting to look for opportunities that perhaps they weren't looking for even 3 or 4 years ago.
Now, first of all, when we're talking about ultra-rich, how wealthy is ultra-rich?
Yes, well, just last week I was in Guangzhou presenting to a group of what they call ultra-rich clients of one of the major banks, and they define ultra-rich as people who have 50 million renminbi, so call that 10 million US dollars, in the bank ready to invest. That's what they call ultra-rich, as a minimum.
Right, okay. Whereas, say, in somewhere like Australia or the UK, it might be $1 million or $500,000 or something like that, or $500,000 income, probably more likely,
probably, yeah,
rather than actual kind of cash in the bank.
Right.
And so, what did they look like in the past? Was the ultra-rich any different?
Yes, well, remember that China is quite a new country. Modern China is a new country. China, of course, goes back thousands of years, but modern China, since it opened up, is only about 30 years old. And of course, the first 10 years were really difficult. So anyone who's about 60, who's made lots of money, you have to remember they've spent half of their life living on a farm in the Cultural Revolution with no money and starving. And it's only in the last 20 years that they've become rich. So they're learning about how to invest their money and how to make the most of being rich, how to spend their money, at the same time that the younger people are learning as well. So it's quite unusual that there is not much history of ultra high net worth individuals in China. Everybody's kind of learning at the same time about what to do with it.
Okay. And with I guess in a lot of Western countries is quite often the parents wouldn't necessarily pass the money kind of through the generations. Is that generally happening, or where the father or the grandfather's got all the money, do they actually kind of keep that to themselves?
No, they pass it down. They share it, and they like building family businesses. So a bit like maybe America was in the 1800s, 1900s, even early 2000s. Family-owned, family-controlled businesses where the father at the top has quite a strong influence, but the money definitely is filtering down to the other lower generations, and then they're going out and investing it and starting up new businesses around the world as well.
Mm. And I guess when the kids are growing up, are they generally getting kind of Chinese educations, or are they being sent overseas to other universities?
Well, in the Cultural Revolution, China pretty much wiped out its education system. So they're now starting to build that up from scratch. But in the meantime, there are Chinese students all over the world. There's well over 1 million Chinese students around the world today in foreign universities.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So they're certainly kind of expanding their horizons and learning new things.
And bringing that back to China, of course, because many of these children, having gone to Harvard or Oxford or Sydney University, are now back in China working in the family business.
So where does most of the wealth originally come from?
Well, actually, probably around property, because as China opened up and as they started to move people out of rural areas into urban areas, they started releasing land and developing new commercial and real estate, residential property. And some of the most of the money that's been made, or a lot of the money, has been made in two areas. One is in property development. So those who got in early, those who built the local relationships with government, were able to get access to sites, were able to develop the first sort of property businesses. Those are the guys who've become the richest. The other area, of course, is manufacturing. China's been the world's manufacturing hub for the last 20 years. Those who got into that early have become extremely wealthy too.
Right, okay. And is that where they see things carrying on in the future, along similar lines?
Well, no, now that it's starting to change. They're opening up new areas. Healthcare is a big one. We're seeing a lot of change in China's healthcare system as they move to a more of a world-class model from where it was before, which was a bit antiquated and driven by the public sector. We're also seeing education. They're now starting to build their own education institutions. Tourism is a fast-growing area. Financial services. Now China's actually becoming a much more modern, open economy, and so future wealth will start to be created in a whole lot of new areas. But it's pretty much come from those two areas so far.
Right, okay. And I guess for the Chinese that are looking at your business, what are they trying to get from you?
They need help to manage their investments, manage their businesses, and manage other opportunities around the world. So they need somebody who can help them do that. They know that has to be a white guy like me, somebody with deep connections into other markets, and so they're looking for that kind of help, support and advice. And contrary to a lot of opinions around this, they'll pay for it. If they think you can deliver it, and particularly if you can demonstrate a track record in helping Chinese around the world, they will pay for that advice, and they will start to follow it.
Because a lot of the preconceptions about the Chinese is that it's very much money conscious and they don't like paying fees and they're always trying to get a deal and trying to get a discount. But is that purely a trust thing?
Yeah, I think so. And there is a tendency for people who've made money very quickly to become a little bit arrogant about it. And so they do like to see people running around trying to help them. And there's lots of people out there looking to get access to high net worth Chinese investors. And so if they can, they'll get away. If they can get away with it, of course they will. But if you put your foot down and say, look, we've got a very strong track record, you can talk to people who've worked with us before, this is how we charge, we like you to pay a bit up front, we want you to pay a bit in the middle, and we'll pay the rest at the end, I've found that they'll do that.
So certainly business can work exactly the same in Australia or the UK or Asia as it does in China as well.
I think so.
Yeah. So certainly there's a lot of opportunity out there, and what we're going to be trying to do over the rest of the show is find out more about that opportunity and see perhaps where some of the things that you can implement in your own business. Now, join us after the break. We'll be back soon. Hello and welcome back to Empire Builders. Today we're talking about the Chinese UltraRich, and we're joined by David Thomas from Think Global. Good to see you. So tell me a bit more about what the Chinese actually want to do with their money. So these ultra-rich people, they're literally stacked with cash. What are they trying to do?
Well, three things actually. The first is investment. They're looking for ways of getting money out of China to diversify, because it's a pretty hot, tight market, China. You can only really invest in shares, property or cash. And all that at various points, properties become quite hot, and shares have become extremely hot until relatively recently. So now they're looking to diversify, and the way to do that is to invest outside China. And China is opening up and making it easier for them to do that. That's the first area. We should come back to that and talk about some examples. The other area is business. So many of them are running, fairly large domestic businesses in China. They're entrepreneurs. They've made lots of money. They're looking for growth. They're not getting as much growth domestically as they did because China's naturally slowing. So to get growth, they need access to global customers, new industries, new markets. To do that, they need to go out of China, invest overseas in businesses, and start playing roles in joint ventures or distribution agreements. Just like we're going in, they're coming out. And the third area, actually, which has surprised me, but it is quite a big driver, is migration. I mean, many Chinese families are now looking to start new lives in other countries. And therefore, I've found that if you can deal with that opportunity, where as part of a business or investment deal, you can build in a migration opportunity, then everything goes even quicker, because they're actually quite firmly driven behind that and looking to start new lives for family, for friends, for their children to get education, to create a new lifestyle for themselves in other countries.
So is this all a bit of a warning to us that if all the Chinese are leaving to get diversification and a better life, then we should be worried about going in there?
Well, there's 1.3 billion of them. I don't think that there's much of a drain, actually, in terms of their population. They've got an aging population, so it is slowing, and China's population will probably stagnate now. But I think there's still plenty left.
There's plenty of opportunity of things that we can give them that they're after and they haven't seen. The first thing you mentioned there was about diversifying their investments and trying to get the money out of China. What are some of the constraints for a local Chinese person that's stopping them or kind of making it hard for them to get money out? Well,
yeah, the Chinese government has fairly tight controls on money going out, and in fact the maximum amount they can officially move outside is $50,000 US per person per year. So, it's good if you've got a 10 million to move out, it'd take you a long time to do that. But business, of course, gives them the opportunity to do that in a different way. Instead of personal transfers of money out of China, you going through your own business as an entrepreneur, by setting up businesses around the world, you can find ways of moving money around. The Chinese are very good at finding ways around the system, of course.
So they're allowed to invest in other businesses outside, so they can transfer money out, but it's only 50,000 if it's personal.
If it's personal money, yeah.
Right, okay.
Unless, of course, they migrate, in which case then they can then they're allowed to move their money out because, of course, they're moving overseas. But that's one of the reasons for the migration drive, actually, is to give them that opportunity to.
Yeah. And with the diversification of their money, are they looking into a whole host of different things in multiple countries?
Yes. So, but one thing that they're always concerned about, the Chinese, from my experience, they'll talk about return. They want to get a big return on their money, but one thing they always worry about is safety. And the one area I find they all want to invest in, because they regard it as safe, is property. So they're buying property around the world. Apparently, ultra-rich Chinese people own, on average, 4.7 properties each.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.